Let's just say I'm burning an hour and a half per endpoint, right? So you're a 30-person shop and I'm burning an hour to an hour and a half. That means I'm burning about 40 hours a month on you. That's expensive. That's a quarter of a person. So that means if I'm paying my guy $60,000 a year, you're costing me $15,000 a year. So if I could reduce that hour, I could reduce that down to 3/4 of an hour. I could reduce that down to a half hour. Can I reduce it down to a quarter of an hour? Well, how do you do that? Most technical people would say, well, let's go in there, wipe all their machines, and let's go ahead and do all of it. Then go ahead and do it. What are you waiting for?
Hey guys, Damian Stevens, host of MSP Mindset, founder and CEO of Servacity. Today, I got the pleasure and blessing of interviewing David Bennett. David shares a story where he fell asleep at the wheel with his family in the car because he was so exhausted. He went to see the doctor, and then he was ticked because they didn't prescribe a pill. He actually said, you just need to learn to say no. That set David on a 2-year journey to figure out how to say no to all the wrong things, yes to only the right things, and to focus on what matters, and ended with him understanding his true identity and how to put first things first. If you want that for your life and your business, don't miss out. I'm on conversation with David today. So David, I wanted to jump right in and try to understand a little bit of your story. How is it that you actually started working with your first client in 1983?
Indentured servitude. No, seriously. My dad had started this company back in 1977. So if you think about that, in the computing era, that would be mini computers.
Right.
The PC got introduced in August of 81. So in 1980, I was 12, and I was crying because I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I thought I should. I thought I was behind the times. I thought I'd be a hobo living under a bridge. And you might think, well, where's that coming from? I had an older brother. He's 5.5 years older, who he knew he wanted to be an anesthesiologist when he was 5.
Wow.
Told a neighbor, I'm going to be an anesthesiologist. And he is. So he knew exactly what he wanted to be. And wow. I just thought that was normal. You know, your big older brother knows exactly what he wants to be and can tell everybody. And I just thought, well, I don't know what I want to be.
Right.
And I knew I didn't want to be a fireman or a policeman or any of the things that a little kid might do. I was 12 years old already at this point, right? I'm not a little kid anymore, but I didn't know what I wanted to be. I was crying. My dad must have been laughing on the inside. Took me into the office. I was a gopher that summer. Go for this, go for that, you know. Basically, I was a big, strong kid, so I was moving a lot of people between a couple floors. And when I didn't have something for someone to do, there was about 35 people in the office at the time. And what the business was doing outsourced development work. So my dad had built teams of developers. He's not technical at all, but he had built teams of developers to develop on different platforms, HP, IBM, DataPoint, et cetera. And so when I wasn't helping those folks do something, carry this, move this, I was reading manuals, because remember, this is before the internet. So everything was printed in manuals, and you'd have, you know, IBM Series 1 manuals and HP 3000 manuals and whatever else. And those things were boring as heck, but I was bored, and I just read manuals. And so I taught myself everything I could. And so the PC got introduced, and initial networking using Novell came out in the 80s. And in 1983, we had a client in Miami who was down. It was a large real estate company. Their network had gone down, and every engineer was in the field. And my dad was pacing the hallways, and I was like, "What's wrong?" And he said, "You know, this client's down." And I just looked at him and said, "I could fix that." And he just stopped and looked at me cold, like, "You can fix that?" I said, "Yeah, I could fix that." He said, "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. Let's go." Now, this is 1983. I'm in jeans and high top sneakers. This is an era when everyone still wore a suit, right?
Yeah.
And I'm 6'2". And so my dad takes me down there. We drive down there, about a 40-minute drive. And I walk in, and the controller, his name's John. John walks up, and he looks up at me and looks at my dad and says, "Is this bring your kid to work day?" And he's shaking my hand. And my dad just looked at him and said, "No, David's going to fix your network." And he just went white. I mean, just white as a ghost. They stood outside the computer room door, so no one came in. And I went in there, got everything working, got everything back online, came out in about 15, 20 minutes, and said everything's working. And John had sweat on his forehead. He's wiping his forehead. He's like, "Is it all working?" He's running around. "Tina, can you log in? Everybody else, can you log in?" And he came back and he said, "Hey, that was good work. Get your driver's license, and you can start working for us." And they actually
That's
became
awesome.
my first client when I started driving in a couple of years. So a fun introduction.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting when you get a head start on the business world. You figure by the time I was out of college at 20, I had already been working for 8 years, 7 of it in front of clients. Because while that was my first one, I was working for clients from that point on. So it was
What did you
interesting.
learn by starting so early that you feel like shaped you or helped you?
Probably the most significant thing was a lesson my dad gave me. We were in a board meeting in that same client, actually, and I was in jeans and everyone else is in suits. And Dad pulled me aside after the meeting and he said, "You need to learn when to open your mouth and when to keep it shut. And if in doubt, keep it shut." He said, "You're really smart. You want to tell and explain everything to everybody," which isn't that like your typical engineer? I mean, isn't that your typical technical person?
That's right.
And he said, you need to pay attention to your audience. He said, most of the time, they're not looking to understand the technical nuance. They're looking to you need to understand and speak to their language. And I understood kind of what he meant, but over the years, I've distilled that down into a lesson that I teach my people, which is you can communicate to everyone on the common language of how I can make you money, how I can save you money, and how I can protect your assets. So if you translate everything into that, I can talk to anyone about anything. You think about an insurance person is talking to you mostly about protecting your assets. A person with a new air conditioner that he's trying to sell you a new air conditioner is going to talk to you about saving money because it's more efficient and won't break down as often, right? It all translates, and I don't care who you are. I don't care about anything about air conditioning, but I understand that, right? The repair bills I've had for the last year versus you putting in a new one, those repair bills go away, and it's also going to be more efficient. Let's put in the new air conditioner, right? Because you explained it to me in language that I can understand. And so that universal language is something that was an early lesson, and it's one that I think has really, really helped me mature and grow because it's opened a door to learn how to communicate.
Hey guys, Damien here. As I continue to interview the top MSPs in the world, one thing has become incredibly clear. It's time that we let go. Even more than that, every time I focus on my zone of genius and get out of the way and do the very few things I'm good at and delegate to others, I'm ready for that next level of growth. So if you're ready for that next level of growth, one way that I could help you is with Servosity. We co-manage your backups and disaster recovery so you can focus on what you do best, let us do the rest, and then what we do is we test the backups every single day so you never have to worry. If you'd like to learn more, click the link below. So you started in 83 at 15 years old. And then in what year did you take over the business?
So I took over the business from my dad. If memory serves correctly, it was 2003. Could have been 2002.
Okay. So 20 years later, that's not like, it's not like here you go a couple of years later.
No. In fact, I kept telling him for years, he kept saying, you should be planning to take over the business one day. And I said, I would fire everyone. I was not a people person and I disliked so many things in working with people. And it took me 20 years to learn that people aren't perfect.
Right.
And I think the entire transfer of power took about 2 minutes. I think it was. I remember it was. I was married at the time, married already, and my dad said to me, "Hey, I think it's time for you to take over the business." And I said, "You know what? I think you're right. When do you want to do this?" And he said, "Well, why don't we do it on Monday? This is a Saturday. Why don't we do it on Monday? Because I'm going to leave for Alaska with your mom on a cruise for 3 weeks, and it'll give you a good chance just to, hit the road running." And I said, "Okay." And that was it. That was the entire conversation.
Wow.
And so we announced it to the staff on Monday and hit the road. And I almost destroyed the business in the first year.
Oh, yeah?
I had all kinds of ideas of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to do with sales and everything else, and hired a bunch of people and had no idea how to manage the finances of the business. No one had ever taught me any of that. And just almost destroyed the business. So I ended up having to lay off a bunch of people that I had hired. And I really had no concept of how to conduct sales or marketing. I would still say that's a weakness. And I learned. I learned quickly, trial by fire.
I want to take a step back before you took the business over in that kind of 20-year period. What do you think changed or prepared you to even be ready to start that? Obviously, there were some mistakes, but even what changed where either you or your dad felt like you were ready, and how do you think that equipped you?
So while I completely sucked in understanding the levers and the nuance of finance and how to read balance sheets and a P&L, and I didn't understand it. It was Greek to me.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did know is I had learned how to. I'd started to learn. I had developed not a mastery, high mastery, but I had developed a proficiency with managing and working with people. So it had gone from being a lone operator to I could work better with a team. And I learned to get over I can do it better myself, faster myself, into I don't care if Damien takes twice as long. If I can teach him to do it and he takes twice as long, he freed that time up for me. So he takes 20 hours to do a project that I can do in 10. That's fine, but I still got 10 hours back that I can go do something else. And so that's still a net benefit. And so, and Damien can get better, right? He can get it down from 20 to 15, and maybe he'll get it down to 12. And so I didn't have to say, you've got to do it at least as good as me for me to give it to you. No, I just learned that it's okay to deal with people of different abilities. And listen, I also found out, surprise, surprise, that there were some people who could do it better than me. It was like, wow, even if that was only occasional, it's like, there is hope, And so I realized people can learn and people can grow. And in fact, a key role for me was to nurture and develop people. And that was a shift. You went from a solo hotshot, which I was a solo hotshot, into how do I go ahead and operate and work with a team. And I think when that maturity came, when that realization and insight came and the maturity came, it was right around that same time. So it took 20 years to get there. It was very slow. Very slow process.
I kind of remember that it hit me like a ton of bricks finally when I realized I didn't have to bear the burden of being the smartest guy in the room.
Yep.
I didn't have to keep up with every single technical nuance and every certification and, try to be the hot shot.
Yep.
And then it was just like a whole nother world when I was like, wait, there's great people. I could work on being better at people and working with my team. Because even a small team of 5 or 10 not only has more hours, but they can have way more nuance than no matter how smart you are and how hard you work, right? You just can't be a master of all of those domains. So I remember it took me forever, kind of like your story. Maybe it took me a long time, but finally I saw, a different lens. So I can very much relate to that. And then tell me about that first year, right? You said, I'm going to hire, I'm going to scale sales. You had to lay people off. Like, what happened with the business and what did that teach you?
So the business at the time was still largely time and materials and project based. There was no concept of recurring revenue or managed services or any of that kind of thing at that time.
Sure.
So really what happened was I ended up spending whatever we made and didn't dig out of that. So we didn't lose money. I just spent it all and had nothing to show for it. So because I didn't know what I was doing. And I was, while I had some counsel, some experts that I was talking with, when I look back, I go, that was a pitiful plan. It was just, it was the flailing around of a person who said, I read a book and now I'm going to go ahead and try to do something, instead of saying, okay, I need someone who can do this, and finding the person who has done that and proven, and said, okay, I'm hiring you. So Damien, I'm hiring you to go ahead and lead sales. And that would, honestly, at that time, if I would have done it right, what I would have done is I would have hired a sales manager to go build a sales department. And I didn't. So that was a failure. And we went through some headaches with that. It was tough. It was difficult, and then pulled back, and then was shy about doing that again for quite some time, because you get bit and it costs you, and you're like, I don't want to do that again. And so it was several more years before I actually said, no, sales, like anything else, is a process and it can be built.
Yes.
And learned how to do that in 2010 with an outsourced partner who was doing the ISR work, and really, really did well. And then I lost that partner and never have been able to recreate that. I'm actually just on the cusp now I'm deciding right now, started last year in 24, to focus on building an inside sales team for appointment setting, for the purposes of just getting me at bat. I am sales in our organization. We're a 16-person firm, and I am head of sales. And so, all the outsourced folks trying to get you appointments and everything else has failed miserably. I've tried them all since that great partnership I had in 2010. I've never been able to replace it. And the idea now is build it. And I know it can be done because I've got a number of peers who have, and I'm following their footsteps. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to suck dry their brains of what they've done, what works, and just follow that recipe. And following the recipes is great, but it also takes a good person executing. And that's been probably one of the greatest challenges, is finding that person. And
I could get one of the recipes from Gordon Ramsay, but it won't taste the same if I put it together, or somebody else. There's definitely skill and talent. I want to go back to something you said that's interesting, because I see it in my life where I've done something, tried to build out that sales team. I have tried to build the sales team, then been in the part where it didn't work. I had to lay people off. I won't speak for you, but for me, boy, that really sucked.
Soul crushing?
Yes, soul crushing. And I'll reflect back and I go, why did I do this? Can I ever even do this? Like when I look back, I go, man, I waited a long time. And I was, like you said, shy. The word you used was shy. So tell me about that feeling, and then when and how did you come around to, like, because I also have looked at it and be like, I've said too many false things, like, well, I just couldn't build a sales team, or I can't build one, or it's not possible. So tell me about that shy and then period of time before you decided, like, I'm going to do something about this.
My guess is what you just described is almost universal.
Yeah.
It's the same thing here. I know I tried building sales before. I tried outsourcing. None of it works, so therefore it doesn't work. And, it's all these, we tell ourselves these things to say there's a justification for my failure. It doesn't work.
Confirmation bias.
You'll hear something like, well, cold calling is dead. Okay, yeah. The person who used that first on the ad headline was HubSpot, who was offering inside sales, marketing, and they had the largest call center.
I was going to say yeah,
And
that's
they
the
still do.
spoiler alert. They didn't let
So
out the
cold calling is not dead, right?
yeah.
So, but we tell ourselves that it is, and we'll buy into that, or whatever else it is. It doesn't really matter what it is. I mean, we're talking about sales, but it could just easily be anything.
Yeah.
And so, you get burned. And the question, let me back up. I had a wonderful mentor. I was in Vistage for years, and I had an old New York guy, Harvey. And Harvey would come in here. He was, oh, crud. Harvey had 30, 40 years on me. And so it was an old, crusty old guy who was sharp as a tack. And I remember he one word of advice, one word of wisdom I got from him was, when you fall flat on your face, something goes wrong, something goes bad. He said, you could do one of two things with it. You can explain away what happened and get up and move on. He said, or you can get up and use that and realize it's just an expensive education and wring out everything you can learn from it.
Mm.
He said, so have you gotten a really expensive education? Or did you just fall down and get up? Because if you just fell down and get up, you'll probably trip over yourself again and do it over and over and over. But if you got a really expensive education, you're going to go ahead and figure out, what can I do with this? And how can I learn from it? And what can I? And so when you start doing that, I think you'll start making forward progress. Because what you're saying with it is, I'm not going to let it go. It can be done. And I'm going to figure out how to do it. And I think the best way to figure out how to do it is to buy that knowledge from someone else.
Mm. Yeah.
Whether it's a book, a seminar, or whether it's a coach, whether it's, Damien, you've done this before. I'm just going to hire you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what you cost. You're coming to work with me, and you're going to make this happen because you've done it before, and I can trust that you can do it. And you can do it again. And
you can
so
save years.
You save years.
Pain.
That's right.
And trial and error.
That's right.
Yeah.
One of the things I firmly hold true is I believe small business is small because we think small.
I never even liked the name small business. It sounds like the goal is to be small.
You could be really comfortable in a small business. I got no problem with it. But the point, I think we're small because we think small. Mm-hmm. We don't think large. We don't think greater. We don't think we think within the limitations of what we have rather than realize we don't have limitations. The limitations are self-imposed. Mm-hmm. I tried building sales. It didn't work. It doesn't work for my industry. It doesn't work here in South Florida where I'm from. It works where you are, but it doesn't work in South Florida. South Florida is a different market, right? All these other things that we put up.
I've heard that very, very same, excuse.
And what we do is we wall ourselves in. We wall ourselves in with this foolishness. And so we think small. We think, well, it's right here. Here's what I know. Right. Here's what works for me. And I won't really step out much beyond that.
So let's go back to your life there. How did you get over that? You said shy, so however you want to frame that, but you were shy, which I totally get, and so was I. So how long did you wait, and then what changed? When even if you didn't, sounds like you didn't immediately succeed. You went out and hired cold calling services that didn't work. By the way, I did the same thing. So they didn't work either.
Gun shy would be the right word, because I would never say I'm a shy person. I'm a very brash, bold person. But gun shy, right? You do the sales thing, it doesn't work. And so a few years later, I want to say it was 2019, I had decided I was going to fix sales.
Okay.
And so knowing nothing about sales, I didn't know how to sell. Now let me give you a backstory here. I did know how to sell, but it wasn't a process. There was no conscious, I just kind of did it. And give you an idea, and you have to probably translate the dollars to have this make sense, but in 1990, 89, 90, I remember I did a look and how much I was selling that year over year. And I was basically just a hot dog engineer who sold what I did, and I was selling $750,000 a year back then. So, $750,000 worth of service, not bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially for somebody that didn't even say they knew anything about
I didn't
sales.
know anything about sales. And so what did sales look like? Well, I'm the technical expert, and I'm saying, going to you and saying, Damon, you really need to do this. You really need this new server. You need this new whatever, this new switch, this new whatever it was. And people said, Dave, if you're saying I need it, can you explain why? Why can't I keep the old one that I have? Here's why. It sucks. It does this. And I would explain it because I could communicate. It was passionate. I believed it. I would even go so far as to say, listen, I'm going to put it in. And if I'm not right, you don't owe me anything.
Yeah.
I can't miss that. Yeah, I always pay. So it didn't matter. I was so confident in me, and people bought that. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was doing that. But in around 2004, 2005, I had made the switch into what we today call managed services. I'd flown out to Orange County to talk to a friend of mine, and we spent a day with him, and we were talking about how we could work for our clients on a salary. Managed services. We just didn't call it that. For those who've been doing this for a long time, we were talking about using Novell NetWare with ManageWise, right? I mean, this is like, we still would dial up modems and all this other crap, right? We're trying to figure out how to make this stuff work to where we can tool and get some remote monitoring going on and that kind of thing. Flew back on a red eye and went back to work the next day. It was like, I gotta figure out how to sell this message, and that's sales, and that's talking to people, and I don't know how to do that. So I signed up for a Sandler sales training, which changed my world.
Tell me more about that.
So if anyone's ever listened to David Sandler, if you don't know David Sandler, so he was a sales professional back in the 60s and 70s, formed the Sandler sales method. But basically what he did is he put together a psychology of sales, which, what does every engineer like? Process.
Yes.
We like to understand process. And so he described, he had a vision of like a submarine that you walk through these different compartments, right? And so you go through these different compartments of building an empathy, figuring out, do they have budget, and are they the decision makers, and everything else. And he had a process for sales, and I ate it up. I was like, this is what I've been, this is nirvana. This is fantastic. It's exactly what I want. And so for a year, we were CD players in our cars back then. And so I had his CDs in the car, and that's all I listened to. There was nothing else in my car that I played with David Sandler. I just listened to it over and over and over. On the way to church, my family listened to it with me. Otherwise, we didn't listen to it. I had no music. I never played. It was only David Sandler. And I just mainlined David Sandler. I just wanted to internalize and internalize and internalize. And I became confident through that process, because now I understood what the waypoints were. I understood I needed to develop a rapport with you first, not just what my dad had said years ago, start spilling all your stuff. No, you're a human first. Develop a relationship. Develop a connection point to where we can actually talk, diffuse the situation. Let people know that I'm not here to sell you something. I'm here to just consult with you and advise you. So let's in fact, I won't sell you a thing today. Push that aside. And now all of a sudden, well, there's no barrier, because if I'm not trying to sell you something, I'm just asking you questions to counsel you. And then go on through the process. How do we discover pain? How do we expose pain? How do I ask questions? And you start practicing that, and you get better with it. And then pretty soon it's like anything else. You didn't know Linux at one point, but now you do. You didn't know Windows, you didn't know Mac, and you picked one up, you started playing with it. You just start doing it, and you develop a level of competence in it. And so the only thing I needed more at the time was more at-bats. And so I had...
I think we can all relate to that.
I had worked through. I remembered I'd tried building that internally before, and I was in my mindset still at that point was it won't work internally. I can never build it internally because I don't know what I'm doing, and I didn't have the wisdom to say go hire a sales manager. And as luck would have it, it wasn't luck. I'm sure it was God. I met a gentleman out of Texas. I got cold called probably, and I said, you know what? I'm actually looking for someone like this, and I hired his firm, and they were fantastic. I was getting 3 to 5 appointments every single week.
Wow, that's magic.
And I just, with the rest of my business, I just said, folks, I've got some great process for you guys. We've done some fantastic stuff. My brother-in-law, Dan, was at this point had stepped up, and he was doing the operations. And I said, I'm just going to be focused on sales. And I was. I bought a pack of thank you notes and stamps, and I would go see Damien. And before I left your office, I'd sit in the parking lot. I'd write you a thank you note because no one ever gets handwritten notes. I'd stick it and stamp it. I'd drop it in a mailbox on my way to my next appointment, and I would do 3 to 5 appointments, new appointments. Then, of course, you do 3 to 5 appointments. You're going to have probably 2 or 3 follow-up appointments the next week where you're coming back and presenting whatever your presentation is. And then you're going to have another follow-on appointment. So by the time I'm in my 3rd week, I've got my 3 to 5 new appointments plus 3 or 4 follow-up appointments. Basically, I was on the road all day and loving it, and started selling like you would not believe because I had all these at-bats to go ahead and try. And it was a game changer.
But wait, David, you admitted to being, which I can relate to, that engineer that loves process.
Yep.
So you had me there. I'm totally with you. And then you said something like, I loved it. And you were talking about sales. Isn't that illegal? Isn't there something against loving sales and being technically minded? Like, how did that happen?
I understand, but no, because sales is not an evil thing. In fact, every single one of us sells every day. The girl you chased, right? That was sales.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, dating is sales. Convincing your kids to be happy about cleaning up their room is sales. I mean, we are selling every single day. We're negotiating. You know, I want to go to Italian. I want to go eat Mexican. That's a negotiation, right? And you're going to go ahead and deal with it. And you're going to go ahead and come. It's sales. All of this is sales. We live our lives in doing sales. And so everyone does sales. There's no such thing as we don't. I think what we have an aversion to would be the slimy sales, the manipulative sales, the used car guy sales. Yeah, I don't think we do. We want to do that, but I think we all respect when somebody approaches us in a way that is genuine, real. They don't mind the barriers that we put up against them and can diffuse them and disarm them. And it happens so quickly. You're like, wow, how'd they do that? They did it because they were genuine. And I would say, I was about to say, you can't fake that. You actually can fake that. In fact, the best people who fake that are con people who aren't in prison. But right below them are really good sales folks, or really good communicators.
So how did you go from, is this what you attribute? What do you attribute to, kind of taking over the business, not knowing, hiring all the salespeople, letting them go, right? Did that kind of the beginning to now, like most recently, number 142, top MSPs, right? So what do you attribute to that? How did you make that huge growth?
I think there's 2 things. The first is the engineer side, because I'm sorry, that's what I am first and foremost. And it's going to be a constant improvement of process, procedure, and training, and teaching that across my team. I remember I was taking a walk with Dan. Man, this must have been 15 years ago, right around the same time that I was taking sales off. And we were outside smoking a cigar in the middle of the day, taking a walk. and we were arguing and talking over something. And I said, we're going to have to hire some high-end talent. He's like, why? I said, well, with all this new sales activity, we're going to need people who can go in and manage these accounts, and take care of them. I'm going to need engineering staff, not just, desktop guys. I'm going to need some engineer. Remember, everyone's got servers back then, right? There's no cloud. There's none of that stuff.
That's
and
right.
So you need some good skills and everything else. And Dan asked me a question that completely changed my mindset. Just one question. He said, why? Why don't you just cookie cutter what we do across our clients, standardize it? He said, that's what you're good at. You are really good at standardizing. And so you don't have to have a team that knows all the nuances of Active Directory. You don't have to have a team that knows all the nuances of networking. Just set up the standards for them.
Mm.
And he said, and you know what? When they do get stuck, they can call Microsoft and just file a support call. If the support call costs $350, so what? It's still better than having a six-figure talent on board that you don't need if you're cookie cuttering. And, I flashed back to, the whole McDonald's story and folks like, that's exactly what they did. I mean, this wasn't new.
Yeah.
And I realized he was right. And we were already probably 70% of the way there, because everything that I had done up until now was building and writing process to go do something and to roll things out efficiently. And here's the connections way of doing something, right? It's just, I know there's 15 different ways. I know there's 12 different firewall manufacturers. We support a single one and only one. And of that, we support one model. Why? Because now I don't have to teach all kinds of other stuff. And there's only one way we set that firewall up. And here's the 28-page document that describes it all. So you can actually learn it. And if you want to know any of the nuance about what the firewall could do, it doesn't matter.
When was this you made this decision?
This would have been right around 2010, 2011.
So you were doing managed services at that time.
Yeah.
That's still quite early to, and most people still never make it to that we do things one way. We support one firewall, we support one, server, whatever it is. But really early to focus. But it was interesting, the analogy, like we're all familiar, I think, hopefully, with the McDonald's story. Yet none of us really expect to go into McDonald's and ask them to make us, anything other than like a burger and fries or chicken nuggets, right? We know what to expect, and we're not going to be mad at them when they, can't make a filet mignon really well. It just interesting. Now you had this discussion, light bulb went off. You have this gift, it sounds like, for distilling it down and building this process. What did you do next?
So we focused a lot of our time on, well, let me say one thing that we did not focus on. We did not burn our bridges. I look back and I go, if I could have made one different change back then, that would be a change. We were challenged by one of our peers. Burn your bridges. Move everyone over to managed services, and if they don't come over, leave them behind. We didn't do that. But we sold the heck out of new clients and new managed services. And so for a while there, now you're carrying both, right? You're carrying these hourly clients and the other. And looking back, I realized I should have followed my friend's advice and peer and said, no, convert them or let them go. Because what got in our way, we excelled. We were selling a lot. So we were quickly building our recurring revenue. But what got in our way of being even more efficient was the hourly stuff that popped up over here that was never expected and never done because we weren't maintaining them, right? So one of the things that I think a lot of folks who identify as a managed service provider today get wrong is they think of it first and foremost as a way to market or sell their services on a subscription, but they haven't really changed their model from time and materials. Meaning, I'm giving you access to me for $3,000 a month. And when you need
Right.
me, call me. Well, that's reactive.
Mm-hmm.
How is that any different? In
Yeah.
fact, you put
That's
a
it.
cap
That's
on
good.
what it might be. What if Damien needs me a lot all of a sudden? Well, I'll lose it then. But there's other months that he won't.
You're right.
You haven't done anything, right? So
Yeah.
if you don't put a process in to say, I'm going to take ownership to manage every aspect about your network and dial it in, do all the network operations to go ahead and I'm not saying you have to pay or don't pay. I mean, these things should be, I should walk you through the projects to get you done. Or maybe I just build it into my fee and I just take care of it all. I mean, you can go either way. I don't really care. But the point would be is you have a gap between where they are and where they should be. You want to move them up to where they should be as fast as possible. That's
Mm-hmm.
both projects in some form, but a lot of it's just operations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, once you get them dialed in, and you're providing that guidance for them, that IT director role, right? A lot of people like to call it VCIO. I'm sorry, no one knows what a VCIO is. No one knows what a CIO is in small, medium businesses. They know what an
Yeah.
IT director is. So it's the same idea, right?
Yeah.
So once you've got those things running, your help desk, while it's important because it's what everyone remembers, help have a problem, but it's the proactive side. That's the massive leverage that makes all that work because you want to have your help desk calls getting reduced and reduced. Because if I can reduce my help desk calls, if I when I first onboard you, if my help desk calls, let's just use ratios or metrics again, right? If I'm burning, let's just say I'm burning an hour and a half per endpoint, right? So you're a 30-person shop and I'm burning an hour to an hour and a half. That means I'm burning about 40 hours a month on you.
Mm-hmm.
That's expensive. That's a quarter of a person.
Yeah.
So that means if I'm paying my guy $60,000 a year, you're costing me $15,000 a year plus benefits. I mean, you've got to look at it that way. So if I
Yeah.
could reduce that hour and a half, whatever it is, I could reduce that down to three-quarters of an hour. I could reduce that down to a half hour. Can I reduce it down to a quarter of an hour? Well, how do you
Mm-hmm.
do that? Most technical people would say, well, let's go in there, wipe all their machines, and let's go ahead and do all this. Then go ahead and do it. What are you waiting for?
Yeah.
Right? And so that becomes, you operationalize a process about what you do. Well, we spent a lot of time there thinking that. How do I squelch the help desk noise? How do I squelch the noise? How do I see the noise and how do I squelch it? And if we have a problem that pops up with one customer, how can I systematically take what we learned there and roll that out to my other 50 customers?
Yeah.
So while I'm selling, which means we're onboarding new customers, and these new customers are all over the place, all over the map, how quickly can we bring them into alignment with our best practices? Can I incent my customer? Can I do something for free for them? Do I build it into my service? And we played with all kinds of different models and everything else. And you know what I found? It doesn't matter as long as you do it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. I don't care
Mm-hmm.
whether you charge projects, whether you build it into your fee. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. It all works out the same. And how can I say that? Well, because what you have to look at in all these things is you have to go back to, you have to learn some stuff on financials, but you have to look back and go, I have to be able to execute this profitably.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you realize one fundamental basic, like my service should be at 65 to 70% gross margin, well, all you're really saying is, I need to be charging 3 times your W-2 because it's
Mm-hmm.
the same thing. Well, once you say that, well, now I know what I need to get from my staff from an hourly basis to be able to justify what they do. So now
Yeah.
it just keeps on going. It's like the dots start to connect and I can go, well, that's a simple way for me to look at life. Engineers like simple. And so now I can start to do this stuff and I'm starting to learn a little bit about finance and I'm starting to learn a little bit about all these things. But really, it's just I have to translate this into a framework that I know how to pull the levers and push the buttons. And once you do that, we spent time there focusing on that, and systematically, I was selling customers.
So who did that? You were the process guy, but the sales guy, or
Both,
did you have? So
both,
how are you driving around all day
because
and then
because
building
because I don't
process?
have to build process all day.
Okay.
You see, when you do it systematically, you say, hey, this is the biggest pain in the butt for us right now. Okay, then let me go ahead and take one day. Let me
Mm.
take a Saturday. Right? It's not interfering with my sales activities. And I'll take a Saturday and I'll map out, here's the process. And I'll come in for a couple hours on a Monday, and I'll sit down with Dan and maybe my top engineer. And I'll say, guys, here's how we need to do this. Here's how we need to go implement this. Now go do it. And I push it over to them and let them iterate and get everyone up on board and roll it out. And you know what? If I did 5 or 6 of those a year, I would call that fantastic. I had 5 or 6 more than my competitor had. And then the next year I would do 5 or 6. And the next year I would do 5 or 6. And pretty soon we're freaking dialed in. And the whole team here, when they come aboard, well, we only do firewalls this way. We only support one firewall. We only support one brand of switch. We only do one. It's always one. And, you get a new guy in here and I like Fortinet and I like Cisco. And I'm like, I'm glad you like them, but we're only SonicWall. And I'm not saying SonicWall is best. That's the one I picked. It's the one I felt was best at the time. And so I don't care, but we don't interplay with those things because we don't have the bandwidth to go build expertise in Fortinet and Cisco and SonicWall. And we don't have the expertise. We don't have the bandwidth to go do that. We have the bandwidth, though, to go ahead and define, here's the way we do SonicWall. And here's all the documentation around it. So now our people can now bring it into alignment. They can implement it and they can bring it into alignment. And, even that, probably 5 years ago, we iterated on that once again. We saw, for example, firewalls that had gotten entropy had set in, right? You set up a firewall to your standard and entropy sets in. And so we said, okay, we've standardized VLANs across the board, camera VLANs and data VLANs and guest VLANs and phone VLANs. And we had inconsistent VLAN numbering out there and all kinds of other stuff. And so we were talking about it as a team and realized that creates some confusion. You have a new guy who comes in and it's not the same everywhere. That's confusion. I don't like confusion. And so we sat down with a firewall, built from scratch to our standard, mapped out all the VLANs, and just said, we'll go and slap that image on every single customer, rebuild the inbound and outbound rules that we need, and go. And then that turned into, we won't even do that. We'll just build the firewall here at our office, get it all prepped, and have an engineer take it on site and do a swap. And so we just went swap. In about 3 weeks, we did every single customer. Now, It was a month's work for an engineer. And we did it all. Wow. So now everyone is at a universal standard. Everyone's been homogenized again, right? Everyone's been brought back into alignment. And what it does is everyone on help desk now looks at something that is almost identical, cookie cuttered from site to site. And so, you look at what like a McDonald's does. They do that. They've got stores that have been there since the 50s. Do you think they're still running with the same equipment, the same everything else? No. But they'll come in and they'll say, okay, here's how we'll go ahead and take the new ice cream machine or the new fryer machine or the new whatever, and we'll roll it in, make that work, and fit it into the line so it works to our current standards. And they're constantly uplifting. And so we spent a lot of time building that process and recognizing that the role of the effort of building process is one of the greatest things that we could do to simplify what we do, standardize what we do, and train new staff on what we do.
Yes,
put all those together.
I want to stop you there, David, because I think there's 2 huge takeaways for me. One is too many people say we've standardized, even if they get there. And standardized usually means we've standardized on SonicWall. Okay, that's great. You don't have 42 different vendors for your switching and firewalls. But it does not usually mean we have standard VLANs or standard numbered VLANs or any, you know what I mean? So I love that there's a whole different level of standardization that allows you to understand and to troubleshoot and to make things cookie cutter, because you don't have to go, well, this is a different VLAN ID, because that, everything becomes, your mapping to your rules, all that becomes so much more complex to reason about when it's a little bit different, quote unquote, a little bit different on everyone. And a little bit becomes a lot when you talk about 50 or 100 clients. So that's a huge takeaway. It's like so many people say we standardize, but they standardize at vendor level, not the process and configuration level within the vendor. That's a big takeaway. The other is you said something I think that was really interesting or profound earlier, which was for me as an overthinker, because as an engineer, I came out of the box as an overthinker, which is like we did 5 or 6 of our processes a year. And that was wonderful. And you kept doing it. And I feel like as an overthinker, I go, well, I've got to, you're doing sales, let's say 5 days a week. And then you're like, oh, I'll work on it on a Saturday or talk to the team on a Monday. And 5 or 6 times a year do that, which seems entirely reasonable, entirely logical. Instead of my default might be, I've got to build every process. Stop the presses. We can't take in more clients.
Have the same problem.
Halt all the projects. Yep. Let me spend 6 months just doing this. So I thought it was simple or subtle, but profound, because you built a process in of itself where we're going to always innovate and we're always going to update our processes. And 5 or 6 a year seems like a manageable, comprehensible number, and better than trying to boil the ocean in 6 months or whatever and stopping the presses and doing it all at once. You've also instituted a flywheel where that is normal.
That's exactly it. You're building it in culturally in the organization. Now, at our size, if I stepped away from it, I don't know that would maintain. So I don't think we've got a critical mass and really all it takes is one more person who sees it the same exact way. So I don't have everyone here seeing it exactly the same rigidity that I have. Doesn't matter. Here's all it takes now. I'll walk over and say, hey, Gus, I think we need to do something about this on the phones. Why don't you go ahead? I got it, Dave. I don't have to finish the sentence. Why don't you go ahead and write a process around that and then go ahead and train this? He said, I got it. I understand exactly what you mean. You're talking about that thing that Mario was working on last week that we found? I said, yeah, exactly. We need to roll it. We need to adjust our process. I got it. I'll take care of it. And a week or two later, he's got a whole new process written out. He's got a training regimen with the guys to go ahead and discuss it, talk about it, and I'll go back and forth over it. And then it's implemented into our systematic approach for realignment that we'll do. I didn't do any of it. I just tossed it over the fence. So they know how to get on the bike and pedal. The only thing they might not see is they may not have picked their head up to see, I need to take that and put that into the queue to actually run it through our engine, right? It's the only thing that I find that's missing. They still don't quite see that all the time. They do sometimes, but it's not as often as I'd like. I'd like them to be seeing it all the time. As far as I'm concerned, everything needs to be fixed, all the time. So I'm always seeing it. But the fact that I could pop into Teams and kick this over to Gus and pop it over to Darren and kick this over to Mario, and these guys jump on it and they know what to do, holy cow, it's fantastic.
So all this selling 5 days a week, building process on Saturdays, reminded me of a story you were sharing off air around learning to put up boundaries with work. And you're telling me a really interesting story about driving in the car with your family. Would you share that with us?
Sure. So the backstory is I had 3 businesses going. I had the managed service company Connections that I am today. Connect Smart, which was a dashboard KPI tool that we incubated out of Connections and we built for the industry. It was the first dashboard for ConnectWise. And myself and about 17 other friends and a peer group decided to build a distributor to distribute services and products to MSPs. Never go into business with 17 partners. it's like herding cats. So anyway, I'm juggling all these balls and thinking I can do it. And I'm working full time in Connections, and I'm helping Dan out in Connect Smart during the day, And then at night, I'm working for the third company. And
by this point, if I understand, Dan, who was your operations at your MSP now, because ConnectSmart took off as its own dashboard and KPIs.
At this point, we had spun ConnectSmart off as its own separate business. We'd just been incubating as Connections, but we were still cohabitating in the same building, so we're still cross-pollinating all the time.
Sure.
He had a big gaggle of programmers in here, so he had a team of, I don't know, 10, 12 folks, along with my team of 20. So we were kind of busting at the seams, having a lot of fun doing it. And then the third business that I was, doing at night, diving in, doing tech support at night or doing whatever else going on. Anyway, I was up in with my kids and my wife, and I fell asleep at a red light. And it scared my wife. And then I fell asleep at the next red light. At that point, she was like, "You have got to do something." And I was just tired. I mean, I was literally just, I would just fall asleep. And so my brother, remember the anesthesiologist, I told you he knew what he wanted to be. So I gave him a call to say, "Hey, man, I got this going on." He said, "I want you to go see an endocrinologist." And I was like, "What do they do?" He said, "Aren't they like for diabetic people?" He was like, yeah, but trust me, just go. And so I go, and the guy does a bunch of tests and go back a week later, and he says, "Well, I got good news and bad news." And I said, "Okay, what's the bad news?" He says, "There's no pill." He said, "Your cortisol is shot. Basically all your, what do you call those? They're not hormones. They're whatever they are." Anyway, he says, "You're basically, your body is under so much stress." And, the classic question most of us hear for stress is, what keeps you up at night? Well, the reality, nothing kept me up at night. I was asleep as I was laying down. I mean, it wasn't like I had to lay down and fall asleep. I fell asleep and collapsed on the bed every night, and I slept like a rock. I had no problem sleeping. Nothing was keeping me awake at night. So what do you mean, doc? What do you mean by stress? And he just said, all of your, whatever you call what cortisol, that kind of stuff is. I can't remember.
The receptors and all the cortisol.
Whatever that is, right, is all fried. He said that you are under so much stress. He said, but now the good news is I've got a great prescription for you. I said, "What's that?" He said, "Learn to say no." And I thought, man, what an a-hole, right? Give me a pill, doc. There's got to be something for this. We're in the West. That's all we do is we take prescription meds, right?
Uh-huh.
And I walked out of there kind of mad, kind of deflated that there wasn't, something found that they can cut out. It didn't seem right. Who's he to say that I'm under stress? I'm not under any stress. And by the time I got out to the first red light, I was like, just shut up, Dave. This is my internal conversation. I'm just letting you in on that. Shut up, Dave. Maybe the guy's right. What if he's right? Let's look at it from that perspective. And so as I'm driving down the road to the next red light, what if he's right? Well, how hard is it to say no? It can't be that hard.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we just try it? Let's do an experiment. So I get back to my office. I'm standing right here, and I got a phone call from someone at my church saying, "Hey, could you do X, Y, Z?" And I was like, "Thank you for thinking of me, but no." And I hung up, and I felt a weight come off me.
Wow.
And I was like, I could do that. I'll just start saying no to everybody on everything and figure out how to do that nicely, because that felt good. I mean, I wanted to do what they asked me to do, and my heart is in it. I want to go help, but I have to get my life in order.
Yeah.
And so for the next probably 9 months to a year, what I worked on was saying no to anything that would take away from my family on weekends. That was where I started. So once I ended work on Friday until I picked up my computer on Monday, for me it was, I'm not going to touch a computer.
Mm-hmm.
Because computers and work, they were simultaneous, right? I'd sit in the back patio, I'd be on my notebook, jacked in, because I'd burned through a battery, and I'd be, going for hours at night. And so, but Friday night, I stopped, and I never touched a computer. Now, I might touch a computer to go onto Amazon to buy something, or to go to the library and download a book or something. But that was fun. There was no work. I never would work on the weekend. And it took me 9 months to a year to get that down. And then after that, I went a step further and said, when I finish at night, when I leave work, I'm no longer working. And at that point, I was learning to say no, 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 and no, no, no more. And it took me almost 2 years to work that all the way through. And by the end of that 2 years, I was in a much healthier place. And then, of course, the balance is, okay, you, Mr. Workaholic, what are you going to do now? And I realized work had been filling another space in my life that I had a massive hole. And for me, that was God. It was the spiritual side of my life. And I had been, as I backed off of all this work, my family benefited. Yeah. And I backed off even more. And they were like, we don't need you anymore. I mean, we already have enough of you, right? So now I'm in the back patio and I'm just reading alone. And I realized at that point, hold on, I'm not giving God any time and attention. And the spiritual side of my life is destitute. And so I started to spend time there. And my life today is God, family, business. And my time is in order with where I want to spend my time. And I would have to say, I'm the happiest I think I've ever been. You know, when people talk about work-life balance, which I kind of scoff at, but there is a balance in your life. And there is a work-life balance. And if you let anything overly consume you in your life and you're out of balance, you're not going to be as happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to so much of what you said, except for falling asleep at the red light with my family. That had to get some attention there. But why is it I struggle? Why do you struggle? Because I think we both have reasonable intellect, right? We could figure things out. And I think if somebody asked me, like, what should you put first? God. Then what? Family. Then what? Business. You know, that sort of thing. Like I knew the answers in my head. Any idea, like in your story, I know for me, why did it take me so long? Any idea for you why it took you so long to get that down from your head to your heart?
I think there's a couple things. If you think about when you meet someone, you say, "Hey, Damien, what do you do?" How do you answer?
Yeah, you always go to business, right?
Right. I'm a plumber. I'm an electrician. I run an IT business, right? We define ourselves by our work. What if instead you defined yourself as, I'm a great dad and a faithful husband? What if you defined yourself as, I'm a leader in my church and I care for my church and my God, and I'm a great husband and a great dad, and I also run an IT business? But we don't. So if we invert that, how we self-identify, well, then I would say our mindset priorities are at its root level not focused right. So isn't it natural that we work too much? Because we define ourselves by that. And so I think it starts with, well, what's the root of who I identify as? And we need to get that right. And why does it take so long? I think because when we're younger, we're brash. Nothing can hurt us. Nothing can stop us.
You can sleep when you're older.
Yeah, and I will tell you this: we usually start work before we're in a relationship, and so work was there before my spouse. Work was there before my family, and so it's very easy to get wrapped around work as that central focus, and we lose sight. We lose it. It's so common. It's like it's almost expected that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I know it's one thing that with my kids, I was very, they know the story. They know what I've come through. And I've encourage them to stay balanced. I've encouraged them to put God first. I've encouraged them to make time to do that and to make an effort to stay in balance. It remains to be seen whether they will. I would say from what I see right now, they're doing pretty good. And, it kind of gives me hope that, wow, wouldn't it be cool if since their 20s, they could do it right? How much happier will their lives be?
Right.
How much healthier will their lives be? And we'll see. It's still being written. So
using the David Sandler language, it's a kind of a pattern interrupt.
Yes.
If you don't answer in a business context.
Yeah.
Right. If you say I'm a, loving father, devoted husband, served in my church.
Yeah.
And maybe I do this too. Whatever, however you phrase that, like it's a little bit of a pattern interrupt. In others, I think people are just like, wait, what? You're expecting me to say I'm a plumber. I'm in finance.
Look, and that makes you uncomfortable. You can just say, look, I'm a sexy model of Hawaiian shirts. You could still do something different.
That's a pattern interrupt too.
But it's another pattern interrupt, right? And the point would be is don't focus on me and my business because I'm not going to be focused that same way, right? I'm going to be different. I prefer the first, but the second can make people laugh. So
I'm really interested to ask you this. What's the biggest lesson you've learned? Because it's over 45 years into IT now. So I'm curious in all your years of business.
Biggest lesson, I'm going to go back to we think too small. So think bigger. And one of the best ways of thinking bigger is not be doing it yourself. And so I would say this would be also, I think, is tied to if I had to do a do-over, what would I do over? But the one thing I've learned is the value of having one or two really sharp people on your leadership team. So years ago, which probably goes back at this point 10 years, I hired the first person who's ever been a six-figure salary for me. Now, depending on where you are in the country, and today that's not as big of a deal, but 10 years ago, living in South Florida where I do, not many folks were coming in IT earning six figures.
Right.
And Rob came in, and it was an immediate difference. Not only were we in sync, and we see we have similar values on the world and almost the same values in dealing with clients and everything else, but we became each other's right hand. And the lesson I would say I've learned from that is if I can have just one or two really good people in leadership positions, we can do so much more. And what are those leadership positions? If you look at our business, it's going to be sales, operations, and finance. And if you want to add one more, you could say it would be your technical team or your projects, because you might say operations isn't quite the same as the technical, although for many of us it is. But okay, so at most 4 people, and you're going to be one of them. You're going to wear one of those hats. And so as soon as I can take a hat off and say, I crown you, Damien, and you're going to do operations and I'm going to do sales, your business will take off.
Yeah.
And you could take another hat that you wear off and say, I crown you as being finance director or controller, and you have that role. And it's not just a simple bookkeeping, but it's somebody who can actually talk to you about finances, who can actually, you can have a conversation about and say, how can we fund this and where can we do this? And, they actually have a mastery of the finances. Pretty soon you've got a really strong team. But even if it's only your operations and sales, the two most important, you can't do both.
Yeah.
But if you can do just one really well, and you bring in another person who can complement you and they can do the other really well, wow, your business will take off. And so the lesson I learned was surround yourself with some really good people.
Mm. And then what is if you could do one thing over?
It'd be that same issue. If I could do one thing over, it would be I'd hire that much sooner. I did not realize. I did not realize what it would look like. And, it's kind of stupid. And I kicked myself over that. How stupid it was that I didn't realize early on that, okay, I've got somebody, I don't think I'm average intellect. I'm a pretty smart guy. I think very, very fast. Why don't I just have somebody else like me who's taking over this other role and just let them do it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then I have to go let go, and I can't be the boss, and I can't be bullshit. I'm sorry, but that's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And once you realize you can, and then the next issue was, well, I can't afford that. Well, I never sat down to go, well, how could I afford it? Because today I look at it and go, I can't afford not to.
Mm-hmm.
So I've gone 180 degrees and run in the opposite direction. But it took me so long to learn that. I cry over it. I cry over those wasted, the wasted way I did it. Too often, I think in small business, I'll speak for myself. But what I did is I made do with what I had.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
You read the great books, and they'll always tell you, start with a blank piece of paper and lay out your org chart, and don't fill it in with the people that you have. Fill it in with what you need. And yep, I get it up here, but I don't do it.
Yeah.
I got Bob and Alice and Sally and Jack, and those are the people that we have. And so that's who we go to war with. That's who we go to market with. That's who we go to. Instead of saying, okay, but what this role really needs, Sally's just holding it down for now. But what I really need is I need this.
Mm-hmm.
And I go look for that person.
So switching gears, given we're in 2025, all kinds of things going on in the world and industry. What's something you're looking forward to?
Personally, I want to spend more one-on-one time with my wife. I specifically would like to do a little bit of traveling. The kids are old enough. They're in their 20s. They're old enough where she doesn't need to be a mom, driving the van around anymore, hauling kids around. They're all independent. Mm-hmm. I would like to travel more with my wife, and that's our plan, is to travel more together, to be together, just experience things. I don't really care if it's, I'm going on a trip for a conference, and we bookend it with a couple days on either side, and she travels with me, and we enjoy the time of bookending it. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care how we do it, or if it's just an intentional trip. We're going to Italy for 2 weeks, which is something that we're planning, but we're holding off because we have a very sick dog right now, and so until the dog decides to go on, we can't leave. So so that's it. That's it personally. On a business perspective, this year I am looking to. This is going to sound so cliche. I usually look for 1 to 3 things to affect significant change in the business. Mm-hmm. And this year it's 1, and it's AI. There's all the talk about it. There's all the crap, and every vendor is trying to push crap into their product. And a lot of it is just that, it's crap. It's
sure.
But there is so much opportunity. There's so much possibility for us to map and automate process. And I go back to something that I love. And we are so primed for it. We have spent so much time defining and writing down and documenting our processes internally that we've got years worth of work that now we can say, let's take this one next, and go ahead and let's take this one next. And so when I look at it across the different roles, dispatch is the first and easiest one to go after. What can I do with help desk and automating? And so that's where we're focusing. That's where I'm focusing effort right now, looking at what the marketplace is offering, trying to get a pulse check on it. And I'm not looking to replace jobs.
Yeah, that's going to be my next question.
Yeah, not looking to replace jobs. What I'm looking to do is do what we've done for years, which is free time for my people so I can grow with no more cost of goods.
Mm-hmm.
if I stack on another 50, 100, 200K in revenue a month and don't have to hire any more people because I've got, let's just say I'm licensing $5,000 or $10,000 of AI agents. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't mind paying the license costs.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can avoid hiring more people and instead sharpen my team, free them up from anything that's mundane, anything that's up, and I can put them back on task where they're interacting, where they're growing, where they're learning, they're in their happiest. I know that because all of us are this way. We're at our happiest. And so that's the issue for me. And it goes back to what I've done for years, figure out how to improve a process. Well, this is just applying technology for that. And that's it. I think it's going to be an interesting ride, and I don't think what we start with is what we're going to end with. I think it's going to be constantly evolving very fast.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And I think it's interesting because I think there's a lot of folks that are sitting on the sidelines because it does change so fast, and they're looking maybe just to resell something. And you can be missing that opportunity. And I love how this aligns with what you're really gifted at.
The core of the core of who we are as a company and I am as a person.
Yeah.
I do think we'll waste time and money.
Mm-hmm.
If you call waste learning.
Yeah. Right.
But the other way to look at that is, again, that's not waste. That's called, I paid for an education.
That's right.
And in doing that, I'm going to be sharper than everyone else who's waiting or just selling a product, right? Just selling Copilot or selling ChatGPT, whatever it might be. I don't really care, right? They're selling a product rather than learning and moving. And so, yes, it's wasteful, but that's the fastest way for me to go ahead and sharpen my edge to where now I have the expertise and people look to me for the expertise or look to us for the expertise. And we've done it year over year. We've done it cycle over cycle and wave over wave, and we're just going to do it again. So that's what I'm looking at there.
It makes me wonder if there'll be a ripple effect, David, that either you, like you started Smart Connect, help this other MSPs, or maybe even, your calling becomes, you're so gifted at process. I mean, imagine if you made that kind of impact in the process of your clients.
So you never know where it's going to go.
Let me flip this around. What's your biggest challenge currently?
Biggest challenge right now, I alluded to it a little bit ago with a loss of these three, our three largest accounts. We've had another simultaneous issue, which is a dearth of sales over this last year. So we grew enormously, like a 41% growth a couple of years ago. And I'm looking back and going, well, what's changed in our sales? Nothing, absolutely nothing. Our sales is one thing. It's me. What do I do? It's all centers of influence and networking. So, I go to a golf networking group and I'm hanging out, and we go to have some scotch and cigars and we're hanging out. And, it's a lot of hanging out and being with people that I really like, and referrals are happening, right? The issue is I can't systematically manage that. I can't say, I need 2 referrals this month. So, it doesn't happen, right? Yeah. And so you'll have feast and famine. It's raining and it's wonderful, or it's barren and desolate. And so there are ways to nurture that. There are ways to improve that. I've been doing that for years, and it's prospered us very, very well. What I've never done since I had that great group in Texas was an inside sales person who's given me at bats. And so 2 years ago, I saw this coming. I could already feel it. And so in May of 23, I decided to go ahead and make the attempt to go ahead and build the ISR team internally, which I had failed at every single time before.
The inside sales team.
And I said, I'm going to do it. And I tried 3 different times and failed. And I kept working at it. And I made one change. I brought on a recruiter and said, okay, let's go down the path. Since I failed 3 times now, let's go down the path that I don't know what I'm looking for. And so help me find what I'm looking for. And young man started with me at the end of October, and I think he's perfect. So he's starting to get me at bats.
Nice.
And he's excited. I'm excited. He's very teachable. He's also is an insatiable learner. He's constantly looking at other resources, and we're constantly having the dialogue back and forth to sharpen the game. To let's move this. Let's try this, and let's test this. Let's test for a week. What's the difference? That feels really good. Here's the and we're doing this back and forth, and it's starting to produce results. And so we're decoding it, we're deciphering it, we're figuring it out, and I'll let you know in a year.
That's really
how
cool.
That's working.
Yeah.
That's the greatest challenge right now, but I think we've got a good path towards sorting it out. And once we do, and once we've cracked it, well, then it's just a process. Then it's okay. I need to find another person who's wired like that, and let's go ahead and hire that person and teach them the same process, and they'll ramp up. Instead of it being 4 months ramp up, it'll be a 2-month ramp up or a 1-month ramp up or whatever it'll be. It'll be faster because I just know that's how everything else that's happened in my life has been that way. First time you do it takes 20 hours. By the time you're done 6 months later, you're doing it in 4 hours. Yeah. It'll be the same way. And we'll be able to figure out how to do this. I think for sure, because of one of those lessons that I learned and I talked about previously, one thing I will definitely do is as soon as I know that we have cracked this, I'm hiring a sales manager. I need to distance myself from that and bring in a person who can actually go build that team and everything else without me being distracted.
Well said. I know you're an avid reader, so this may be a challenge, but what's the number 1 or top 2 or 3 books you'd recommend?
Peter Diamandis is the author. The book is Abundance. It is one of my top 10 books.
Why is it one of your top 10?
Have you ever read the book?
I haven't. I've read some other Peter Diamandis, but
okay.
I haven't read Abundance.
I challenge you to read it.
Okay.
He challenges your worldview. And so he spends the first part of the book talking about scarcity versus abundance. And he makes the point that abundance oftentimes is a frame of mind that is unlocked. So he uses some real world examples. Aluminum. Did you know that was once the most precious metal in the world?
No.
In the 1850s, when they were building the Washington Monument, the spire at the top of the Washington Monument was made from pure aluminum. It was the most expensive metal in the world. The King of Siam had a large banquet, and he and the 1 or 2 select royals that were with him ate off of aluminum plates and utensils. Everyone else had solid gold. And yet we laugh at that today. Yeah. What's the difference? Well, the difference was they figured out in the late 1800s how to extract aluminum. So it was a process. So it was plentiful. It's the 8th most plentiful element in the Earth's crust, but it wasn't available. Right? You look at solar energy today. Enough sunlight falls on the world that if we just captured the sunlight that falls on the face of the Earth for 60 minutes, we would power the entire world. It's insane. So what's the problem? It's not a problem of abundance of sunlight. It's the availability. So then he spends the rest of the book cracking availability for food, for water, food, and education. And he shows you how it's already been done. And so as you read the book, you are overwhelmed with a feeling of, wow, what is possible? And that's a default state I like to live in. The curiosity
that is amazing.
Of what is possible. and to look at everything that way. I go back and I read that book periodically just because it reboots, it reshapes that and reboots my mind into thinking that way. It's a healthy way to live.
I have to read that.
It's a really good book.
David, for everybody that's listening, what's the best way they could find you, connect with you?
The best way would be drop me an email. And so my email address is first initial D like David. So it's D Bennett, 2 N's, 2 T's @connections.com. And Connections is just like it sounds like. That's what happens when you get a domain in 1994.
Yeah. People don't get those domains anymore.
No, they don't.
That's amazing. I have loved every minute of this, David. This has been just an amazing gift to me. I think it will be an amazing gift to the MSP community.
Well, wonderful, Damien. Thank you for having me on. Thanks for having this conversation. It's been very enjoyable.
Yeah, thank you for being on MSP Mindset.